That's it for the Daily. I'm Michael Laura. See you tomorrow.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Here's your money briefing for Wednesday, May 29th. I'm J.R. Whalen for the Wall Street Journal. Gen Z wants to live happily ever after, just like any other generation. But what financial security looks like to them is very different from what it meant to their parents and grandparents.
They're not sure if they're ever going to be able to achieve that. Young people's financial goals and motivations have drastically changed through a multitude of factors, but ultimately it is impacting how they're choosing to spend, save, and invest their money because their time horizons look a little different and their objectives overall are very different.
That's Vivian Tu, CEO of Your Rich BFF. She spoke at the WSJ's recent Future of Everything Festival about how Gen Z is redefining what it means to build wealth and live happily ever after. We'll hear more from her after the break.
What if AI could help your business deliver mission-critical outcomes with speed? With IBM Consulting, your business can design, build, and scale trusted AI using Watson X, and modernize the way you work to accelerate real impact. Let's create AI that transforms your business. Learn more at ibm.com/consulting. IBM. Let's create.
Gen Z is redefining what it means to accumulate wealth and live happily ever after. Wall Street Journal markets reporter Gunjan Banerjee spoke with Vivian Tu, CEO of Your Rich BFF, a resource for financial literacy and personal finance, at this month's Future of Everything Festival. Here are excerpts from their conversation.
Vivian, my rich BFF, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hi guys! Yes, love the energy in here. I want to talk to you about getting really, really rich. What does that mean to, say, Gen Z individuals, millennial individuals, versus prior generations? Is there a difference in how they're thinking about getting really rich?
Yeah, so happily ever after, I would say looks very different than, I would say, my parents' generation. It was you work hard, you get the right college degree, you get the right corporate job, you climb the ladder, you have 2.5 kids, golden retriever, tire swing out front with your wife in the best house. The next generation, though, is, I would say, pessimistic in that they're not sure if they're ever going to be able to achieve that. And as such, a lot of folks' happily ever after starts to look very different. And in some cases, people don't want children anymore. They want just the pet. They say, hey, in lieu of a single family home, which used to be the American dream, I want to live in a cool city and I'd rather live in an apartment and stay renting. Young people's financial goals and motivations have drastically changed through a multitude of factors, but ultimately it is impacting how they're choosing to spend, save, and invest their money because their time horizons look a little different and their objectives overall are very different.
Yeah, so on top of inflation, we have, every time you open up Instagram, someone seems to be going on another luxurious vacation, and you're getting FOMO. I certainly feel that.
That's also so inaccessible, right? Because we have to remember that social media is a highlight reel, and back in our parents' generation, it was keeping up with the Joneses. Your parents would literally take physical binoculars and look across the street to the Joneses and be like, the Joneses just got a flat screen TV, I need one too. Now, keeping up with the Joneses are the Kardashians. And suddenly, everybody thinks they need to fly on private jets and go on private island trips to Bora Bora. And in reality, that's not the case for the vast majority of people. And they're not going to be able to do that regularly or, sustainably. And so it is very hard to have this access into people's lives because what billionaires are doing on their vacations is none of my business, and it shouldn't be because I'm not there. And showing me that level of wealth essentially creates comparison, and comparison is the thief of joy. And when you are comparing your life to someone who has means that are 10x, 100x, 1000x what you have, you start comparing your lives, and it's just not a fair comparison.
I want to shift to financial planning because, Vivian, you tell readers in your book, I'm not your father's financial advisor. What does Wall Street get wrong about the newest generation of investors and savers?
We are more discerning and we are smarter than you'd think, but we will not take lightly to being talked down to, and we don't want to explain the way that our parents did. When I joke, like, I'm not your dad's financial advisor, it's because when you see an entire slate of financial advisors that all look the same, they all dress the same, and they all talk the same, what makes me think that they're ever going to identify with me and my existence and my life? They're not.
So what does that mean for, this multi-trillion-dollar industry that's supposed to serve these individuals, right? How do you see it evolving, say, in the next few years or in the next decade?
I'd like to see it get better and get smarter. For a very long time, both financial media as well as financial services more broadly has catered to populations that were older, male, and white. And I don't know if you guys can see me, but I don't really fit any of those demographics. And so I think it's funny, right? Because this is such a huge industry, but it still has yet to really effectively serve women. It's really hasn't effectively served people of color, people who grow up low income, people who are part of marginalized groups like the LGBTQ community. But we can. And what people don't realize is they are going to speak with their dollars too. And they have money, and they have power, and they have that agency. And once we actually start to effectively serve them, that's an entire part of the market share that is now being tapped.
How can we do that?
I think it's meeting people at their level. It's really elevating people in those positions, whether they're CFPs, CFAs, whether they're people who work on Wall Street like I previously did, whether they're teachers, educators, whatever. Have them look like the people that they're serving. When I go and I look for a makeup artist, I oftentimes err on the side of choosing one of AAPI heritage because I have a monolid. And if you are a makeup artist that has done amazing work, but you've never worked on an Asian eye shape, it can be a little touch and go. And in that moment, you're not sure if this is looking good or bad. And I want to work with someone who knows my eye shape. In the same way that I think people who are historically mistrustful of this industry already, when they talk to someone who speaks in their native tongue, they speak to someone who's like, oh, yes, I am a woman who also just got back from maternity leave. I had to fund IVF. My partner and I are currently juggling our mat leave and pat leave. Like, you finally feel seen, and you want to work with people that make you feel like you can be your true self.
What would you say is the biggest money mistake that you see people making, or making when they're picking a financial advisor or wealth manager?
One of the biggest mistakes is thinking that just because you have someone who is an expert, that you are free and clear. You are not. I really encourage every single person out there, even if you have a financial advisor, if you have a planner, if you have anybody who is helping you, that is your opportunity. Ask the questions that you were always afraid to ask. You are literally paying someone for that privilege. It is not for them to do it for you. It is for them to teach you how to fish. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you are going to be responsible for making the tough decisions. No one is going to be able to help you do that except for yourself. So use that time to get an education. And that way, 10 years down the line, you can actually go into your portfolio and say, am I happy with what I'm seeing? Are these fees too high? Do I need to find a new advisor? Do I need to find a new manager?
What does it say about younger investors right now that they do want to make these moonshot bets on things like meme stocks? Like, what's going on there?
I think it ties back to that realization that they may not be able to get to that happily ever after without making some big bets. If your POV is that, hey, I'm not going to get there anyway, just doing it the old-fashioned way, the slow and steady wealth generation way, I either have a chance to be amazingly well off, or I'll be worse off, but how much worse can I be off than now? It's a
stems from a place of a little hopeless and helpless feeling. And I hate that because we shouldn't, as a generation, feel that way. But they're taking these big bets in the hopes that it'll pay off. But for every single Dogecoin millionaire, there is somebody who had to lose money for that person to make money, because every single trade has a winner and a loser. If you are making $1, somebody had to lose $1. And so we only hear about the success stories, but not the ones where people lose their entire life savings.
So a lot of these individual investors are getting their knowledge and information from social media.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a gap between good advice and information and what gets clicks? Do you see that in your content?
Yeah, I think the problem with social media and the algorithm broadly is that it essentially rewards incendiary content. So when you've got a 15-year-old in his mom's basement being like, you should, YOLO your next paycheck into Tesla calls. We'll talk about your options trading a little later. But it's exciting, and half the comments are like, oh, you shouldn't do that. And the other half are like, show me how to do this. Whereas it's not that exciting to be like, hey, I can make you a millionaire in about 40 business years. What is that doing for them today? They don't care. So sometimes I feel like I almost have to trick people into eating the broccoli. I have to blend it into the ice cream. But I will say things like, don't make this huge money mistake. And it's like, the big money mistake is like, do not open up a Roth IRA and put your hard-earned cash in there, and then you actually have to buy investments. And that is not a sexy thing to say, but the 3-second hook at the front was incendiary. It scared people. It got people to watch. And so I feel like by doing that, I'm able to manipulate social media to get people where they need to go. But unfortunately, not everybody on social media is going to lead people in the right direction, and very few people have financial backgrounds. Very few people actually have any credentials, and many people are giving bad advice.
I think that's all the time we've had today. But Vivian, thank you for this. It's been so much fun.
That's Vivian Tu and WSJ Markets reporter Gunjan Banerjee. And that's it for your Money Briefing. This episode was produced by me, J.R. Webben, with Deputy Editor Chris Zinsley. Thanks for listening.
This message is from NPR-sponsored Microsoft. How can smart leaders use AI to transform their business? On the Work Lab podcast from Microsoft, they go behind the scenes with experts to find out what you need to know. That's Work Lab, no spaces, and you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Shortwave from NPR. Today, in celebration of Women's Health Month, we are going to dive into the work of Fatima Aisha Hussein, who has been asking questions about microbes.
Questions about how the different microbes there are evolving and interacting with each other and their ecosystem, which happens to be the vagina.
Fatima studies the vagina. Really, she studies the vaginal microbiome. As a postdoctoral research scientist at the Reagan Institute of MGH, MIT, and Harvard.
I've definitely been obsessing over vaginas for a while. I started out studying environmental engineering and women's and gender studies in undergrad, and then I hopped over to microbiology, and now I get to combine, radical feminism with microbiology in this really cool way.
Before studying the vaginal microbiome, Fatima researched microbes in the ocean.
So I hope to use what I learned in how bacteria evolve in the ocean and apply it to understanding how bacteria are evolving in the human vagina.
And in studying the vagina, Fatima wants to focus on helping people fighting a condition called bacterial vaginosis, or BV. BV is an imbalance of microbes in the vagina, and that can lead to poor health outcomes like preterm birth, higher susceptibility to STIs, and higher rates of cervical cancer. So in searching for new treatment options, Fatima recently completed a pilot study looking at whether a microbe transplant could benefit people with recurrent BV infections.
Our real dreams for the study is to actually understand the vaginal ecosystem better and understand why certain transplants work in certain people, why they don't. those questions will help us in one day design therapies that may actually be useful.
And therapies are much needed for BV because recurrence can be as high as 50%. Generally, scientists have not made studying the vagina a priority, and this fuels Fatima's passion for this work all the more.
Traditionally, people haven't been focused on women's health, and
the Department of Justice is taking on Ticketmaster.
The Department of Justice, joined by 29 states and the District of Columbia, sued Live Nation Entertainment and its wholly owned subsidiary Ticketmaster for violating the Sherman Antitrust Act.
Last week, the government filed a lawsuit against Ticketmaster's parent company, Live Nation.
We are not here today because Live Nation Ticketmaster's conduct is inconvenient or frustrating. We are here because, as we allege, that conduct is anti-competitive and illegal.
The lawsuit is the latest in a string of major antitrust cases brought by the Justice Department, like against JetBlue.
The Biden administration's Justice Department has filed a lawsuit to stop JetBlue from buying Spirit Airlines.
And Google.
We allege that Google has used anti-competitive, exclusionary, and unlawful conduct.
And Apple.
They argue that the tech giant has created an illegal monopoly in the smartphone market.
Yesterday, I spoke with the head of the DOJ's antitrust division, Jonathan Cantor, about his department's most recent case against Live Nation.
People love music, and people hate monopolies. And this case is about both. And Live Nation Ticketmaster has either a monopoly position or significant control over so many different portions of the ecosystem.
And we talked about why the DOJ has become so much more aggressive.
Antitrust is undergoing a revival. There was a time not too long ago where antitrust was sort of taking the back seat and not getting as much attention. And we are entering or in a new golden age of antitrust enforcement, one that enforces the law so that our markets work and so that people across the country can get benefits of a competitive, healthy economy.
Welcome to The Journal, our show about money, business, and power. I'm Ryan Knudsen. It's Wednesday, May 29th. Coming up on the show, a conversation with the DOJ's head of antitrust about Live Nation, Ticketmaster, and a new era of trust busting.
What makes a trip unforgettable? Your next travel experience with Get Your Guide. Choose from over 100,000 experiences in the U.S. and around the world. From priority tickets to top attractions, to hidden gem tours, things to do. Make memories at GetYourGuide.com. Unforgettable travel experiences.
Back in 2022, Ticketmaster and its parent company, Live Nation, came under fire. But not from the Justice Department, from Swifties.
Fans of Taylor Swift crashed the Ticketmaster website today as pre-sale tickets to her first concert tour in 5 years went up for grabs.
Many Taylor Swift fans are furious. Ticketmaster facing a customer backlash tonight.
The debacle even landed Ticketmaster and its parent company, Live Nation, on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers alleged the service was an overpriced, hard-to-use monopoly.
For a lot of people, this story starts with the Taylor Swift Eras Tour and the Ticketmaster debacle that people went through to try to get tickets for that tour. Is that where this started for you?
So, no, this case started with a thorough, serious investigation. I can't get into the specifics of when it started and why it started, but we conducted a thorough investigation following the facts and the law concluded that there was a violation of antitrust law. So we then took action. But I do think it's important to address one of your questions, which is the public gets this issue, and it's an interesting convergence.
Did what happened with Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, did that factor into the DOJ's investigation in any way?
So I think it was symptomatic of issues that we were seeing across the live music ecosystem. So fans and artists have been dissatisfied with the Live Nation Ticketmaster monopoly for a very long time now. And that came to a fever pitch, including with respect to the Taylor Swift incident, that when people wanted choice, they didn't have it. And people felt that customer service was letting them down. They asked questions. They said, where are the other competitors? Why is this happening?
The DOJ makes several allegations against Live Nation, all of which the company denies. The lawsuit says Live Nation has a dominant position in several areas of the live events industry, and that it uses its size to force other companies to buy its services. There are several parts to Live Nation's business. First, it's a concert promoter, meaning artists use it to help organize concert tours. Second, it sells concert tickets through Ticketmaster, a company it acquired in 2010. It also has a big advertising operation, and it owns a lot of venues.
When they own a venue, they can determine who the ticketer is, which artists get to play the venue. They can lock out artists, as we allege in our complaint, who don't use Live Nation for promotions. And then they can get a cut of a lot of different parts of revenue, including parking and concessions. And then in all of this, there are sponsorships. That is an extremely high margin business. And one of the things that we explain in our document is how this is part of a big flywheel. And so what that means is that your strength in one market makes your strength in another stronger, which in turn makes it stronger in another. So if you have a big position in promotions, it means you can have a big position in ticketing, which means you can have a big position in amphitheaters, which in turn gives you a bigger position in promotions, and then that flywheel starts spinning.
Why is that bad for consumers, though? I mean, it sounds like, Live Nation has built up a successful business where they have the ability to make money in lots of different corners of the live event space.
That in and of itself may not be a violation of the antitrust laws, but when they're preserving that position through anti-competitive conduct, it absolutely is a consideration of the antitrust laws. And I think one of the reasons that this issue resonates so much is that fans are not particularly happy. They're not happy with fees, they're not happy with the innovation, their lack thereof, they're not happy with customer service. And so when one company has such a powerful position at so many levels, and competition is not stepping in to meet the needs of fans in particular, then that is really kind of a classic antitrust problem.
So Live Nation has taken a very forceful response to this lawsuit. They say they're not a monopoly. They say that this case isn't going to solve any consumer pain points. I want to walk through some of the arguments that they've made, starting with the first one on prices. Live Nation says that ticket prices are primarily set by performers. So if performers are the ones that primarily set ticket prices, how would this case result in better prices for consumers?
We fundamentally disagree with that characterization. It suggests to me that Live Nation Ticketmaster is either blaming the artists or blaming someone else and not taking accountability for its own conduct. They're the promoter and the ticketer, and they're negotiating with each other for how much money is going to be extracted out of the system. Absolutely, that affects ticket prices.